Hello, I'm Ben Caspit from Tel Aviv. This is On Israel in Al Monitor. I have a riddle for you. What do you call a government made of an Arab Islamist and a Jewish ultra-rightist and led by the former head of the Jewish Settlements Council? Some in the Biden administration are calling Israel's new government a daring experiment, but many others see nothing but political suicide. For our American listeners, imagine a US cabinet made up of the progressives like Ilhan Omar and Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez and representatives of the Quantum movement. This is exactly what you see now in the Israeli coalition. The survival prospects of the Bennett-Lapid government seem fair at the moment, although the odds are heavily stacked against it. Not only is it facing constant efforts by opposition leader Benjamin Netanyahu and his frustrated Knesset allies to delegitimize it, embarrass it, and bring it down. As the most diverse government in Israeli history, it must also hold together this rainbow of all the ideologies in the political spectrum to prevent the government from imploding. This means that all its members must swallow lots of bitter pills, although they can look with satisfaction on having achieved their biggest dream, getting rid of Netanyahu after 12 years in office. Their next do-or-die test is approval of the state budget. If this strange, fragile coalition can win Knesset approval for Israel's first full budget in 3 years, its stability over the next 2 years will be assured, and even Netanyahu's most zealous supporters will find themselves hitting a brick wall every time they rush to bring it down. Our guest today is perhaps the standard bearer of the farthest liberal left in this government. Knesset member Gaby Lasky is a prominent human rights lawyer and advocate. She served as the head of Peace Now and has for years defended leftist causes and activists, even as Netanyahu and his allies did their best to make left a dirty word. She joins us after this short break.
If you're listening to this podcast, you obviously care about the Middle East, and if you do, you should probably be reading Al Monitor. Al Monitor is a global newsroom headquartered in Washington, D.C., with a network of over 160 contributors around the world. Al Monitor offers first-class reporting and analysis from a range of perspectives and an approach that represents the highest journalistic standards, as well as an award-winning commitment to press freedom and independence. If you haven't done so already, visit us at almonitor.com, check out our articles, and sign up for our free newsletters. There's a lot to choose from, including the Week in Review, an essay that offers unusual insights and forecasts into the region based upon Al Monitor's outstanding reporting. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to our Al Monitor podcast on your favorite podcast platform, On Israel with Ben Caspit and On the Middle East with me, Andrew Parasolidi.
Now I'm glad to say hello to Knesset member Gaby Lasky. Shalom, Gaby. How are you doing?
Hi, Ben. Good morning.
Thank you for being with us here in On Israel in Al Monitor. And I want to start with a simple question. You recently made your dream come true by becoming a member of the Israeli parliament, representing the Meretz party, of course. Did you ever imagine you would be sharing the same Knesset benches in a coalition where a pro-settlement hawk like Naftali Bennett and right-wing ideologues like Zev Elkin, Gideon Saar, and Ayelet Shaked are sharing with you?
Well, I have to say that nobody thought that 5 months ago that this was even a possibility. The Prime Minister Bennett was headed the Yesha Council. I was Secretary General of Peace Now. And of course, nobody thought that this was a possibility. But actually, I can say that this government has several things that are so important to Israeli society. And first of all, is the fact that no one now is inciting citizens against other citizens, or that or that the prime minister believes that he's the prime minister of all the citizens of Israel. This is something actually that should be the norm, but 12 years for the last 12 years it wasn't. We never thought that this could be a possibility, but actually I'm very happy about it, and we're starting to understand each other and to learn from each other. There are a lot of differences in our ideologies, but at least there is respect between all the members of the government and of the Knesset and in the coalition. And we're here to work in order to improve the life of all Israeli citizens. So this, I think, is a big change, and it's very good for all of us.
It sounds like a real utopia, and I never thought about it. You just reminded me that Prime Minister Bennett was the chairman of the Yesha party, and you the total negative in Peace Now, and now you are sitting in the same coalition. And I want to ask you about the Prime Minister, because Bennett's approval ratings are low. The fact that he represents a party with only 6 Knesset seats undermines his legitimacy to govern and his ability to manage a complicated coalition. So how do you think he's doing until now?
Well, I have to be truthful, and I have to say that it's an anomaly that the prime minister is coming from a party that is a minority. I think it's a minority in our democracy. But the interesting thing about this government is, in Bibi Netanyahu's government, he was the government. So it didn't matter anything else. And in this government, the ones that are giving the approval are the 61 members of government that they say, okay, you represent us now as prime minister. So it's a very different change. It's a different phase of government. You know, it is a true coalition. And although I think that his rating approvals will get higher, because there's a lot of changes coming, because there's work being done for the better of the people of Israel, and not only so the prime minister will not be in court or will not be indicted. So there's a big difference, and I think that he's doing a good job. I have to say that the prime minister is doing a good job. He listens not only to the ministers, but he also listens to the difficulties of all the citizens of Israel. And I think there's going to be a big change. We have to understand that the government is only 6 weeks old.
Yes.
So we have to take that into consideration. But I think that he's doing a good job now.
And, the Americans are calling this coalition the big experiment. I think this coalition is a real miracle, because we never, just like you said before, we never expected such a thing to happen. But if I may, with your permission, ask a follow-up question. He cannot fire a minister. And his authority is not so powerful like it should be. And now when you see with the COVID-19 crisis that suddenly he thinks one thing about the third vaccine to older people, and Yifat Shasha Biton, Minister of Education, thinks totally different, he cannot use his authority, to call her to order. And maybe it can hurt his ability to maneuver and to govern.
Look, I think that we've been accustomed by the last government that if a minister does not agree with the prime minister, then he's out of line. No, government needs ministers that do not agree automatically with the prime minister. This is the only way that you can really get to the right decision. If you open things and if some of them do not agree. And in this case, Minister of Education Shasha Biton doesn't agree with some of the things regarding COVID-19, but it's okay, because until now, nobody really asked questions about it. So the questions have to be asked and ultimately get to a decision. But so it's fine. I'm not afraid of disagreement in the government. And until now, even though there are some disagreements, we have some disagreements with the finance minister regarding the character of what kind of economy we want in the state, if we want, a neoliberal one, or we want a social democratic one. But we're dealing one with each other, and we're trying to get to a point that everybody agrees. So I think that's okay. I have problems regarding what's happening in the occupied territories, but
Yes, I'm
even
going to
so,
touch it with you. And when
okay,
you say the difference with the finance minister, I think you mean that right now, when we're recording this podcast, the health minister, your party's leader, Nitzan Horowitz, is threatening not to vote, not to approve or to support the budget this week. The government has to approve the budget this week because of the health budget, because he thinks Finance Minister Lieberman has to add more money to the starving Israeli health system, and Lieberman thinks vice versa. And this is exactly, I think we are showing here exactly the problem when you put Meretz, which is a socialist party, and Lieberman, who is, I think almost libertarian, into the same coalition.
It is a you can see it as a problem. I see it as an opportunity, because in the sense that both parties have a settled ideological way, then we have to talk about what is the best decision for the exact point in time that we are now. If I believe that my party leader Nitzan Horowitz is right, because in this coalition of change, we are supposed to be looking into how we better all the services, or the government services for the citizens. And we know, as you pointed out, that the health services in Israel are better than in many places in the world, but for our standards, they are getting worse, and their privatization is killing the possibility for the people that are not wealthy to get the best health care that they can. So he's right in the fact that we need to change and allocate more funds into the health system in order to make it better, and for people not to be hospitalized, in beds in the corridors. And that's something that for years people have been talking about it, but now it's time to change it. And I think that in the end, Avigdor Lieberman is going to give more money for health care, because this is what this government stands for, ultimately in the end.
What surprises you about this coalition so far?
What surprises me is that, that after such governments that we have, that you can have a boring government, that you can be a government without all the time, without fake news, a government without trying to stab one each other in the back, a government that respects each other, and they're here to work. And so, although this has to be the norm, but we have been accustomed to something so different than just, becoming a normal government that's here to work becomes something that we're surprised about, and I'm happy about it.
Yes, we needed a boring government after the last few years. And I want to add another personal question. When we see how close became Prime Minister Bennett and Merav Michaeli, for example, head of labor, and she said that she never sat and spoke or drank coffee with Bennett. This is the first time when this coalition and government were formed that they suddenly got to know each other. And I wanted to ask you, I assume you have an opportunity to spend time with lawmakers who are as far as possible from you and on the ideological spectrum. I'm talking about, Bennett himself, Shaked, Matan Kahana, Gidon Saar, and so on. Is there anything you realize now about these people from the far right that you didn't know before? Is this government bringing closer Israel's opposite political poles, or is it having the opposite effect?
Look, do you remember the speech of the last President Ruby Rivlin about
The tribes.
the tribes.
Yeah.
And he was right. And this government is bringing together those tribes that haven't spoken to each other for such a long time. I want to tell you something from like the inner rooms. We had a meeting from all Meretz. We had a meeting with the Prime Minister Bennett. And when we were sitting in his room, he actually went far to tell us that his father in San Francisco was in a lot of demonstrations in favor of black rights. So, then you come to realize that people are much more, that are not only one thing, that although they are very ideological in the one side and we're in the other, we're both here because we believe in the state of Israel and we want the best for the country and for its citizens. And so it has been like in these nights that we've been in the Knesset, for hours and hours, then we sit in the back, with people members of parliament from Yamina, and we talk about things and we, although we don't disagree, there are ways not to agree. And there are a lot of things that we do agree upon. The fact that some of them have met with many Palestinians, this is something I didn't know, that they have very good relations, even in, with Israeli Arab citizens and with Palestinians. It is something I didn't know. And on the other hand,
it's not only relations with Israeli Arab citizens, it's getting into the coalition of Naftali Bennett, the Muslim party, the Islamic movement party in Israel. And this is unprecedented, of course, and this is one huge achievement of this government that goes in your favor. This is your ideology.
Exactly. So we're now giving acknowledgement that every citizen of Israel has the same vote and has to have the same opportunities. So I think these are very good things that are happening now, not only for the government, but really for Israeli society as a whole.
Okay, so let's move on, because the most amazing event so far was the fact that you and all your Meretz colleagues were forced to vote in favor of a law that withholds Israeli citizenship from Palestinians who marry Israelis, Arab Israelis here inside Israel. This law is a flagrant violation of human rights and undoubtedly opposed to your deepest beliefs. How did you feel when you voted in favor? It happened, I think, 2 weeks ago.
Actually, there is a picture. Someone took a picture of me after I voted, and I held my face with my hands. I was really, it was really one of the hardest things I have ever done. The fact that the law became, it made it, if we didn't vote in favor of the law, then the government could fall. And
it
then
became
actually
a confidence vote in government, and
exactly.
This what forced you to support. And only in Israel can happen such a thing, that you were saved because the law did not pass. You were saved by the Likud and the right-wing bloc that voted against from the opposition. It was all just the negative became positive, etc. In this case. So it helps you maybe to live with it.
Exactly. But and I also want to tell you that that Meretz went to talk to the Prime Minister Bennett about it, and we had actually some kind of we presented some kind of agreement that will allow a lot of Palestinians to get status in Israel, and he agreed with us. That was one of the important things that happened. Something unheard of and something that we could have dreamed of. Actually, he agreed because he respected the fact that it was very difficult for us to vote in favor of this law, but we actually. He was open to hear what our suggestions were, and he actually agreed upon them. And he said that even that the law fell, he will go ahead with the things that we suggested. So that's one of the things that shows that this government really is bona fide. That really we're trying to work with each other, even when we have such huge disagreements one with each other. But it is a very bad law, and it's very difficult. And now there is no law, and supposedly Palestinians can start to present requests in order to get a status in Israel, citizenship, no, but some kind of status. But still, no one has gotten the status until now. But we'll see.
They have to pass a Minister of Interior, Ayelet Shaked, who is a hawkish right-winger, so it's not so easy for Palestinians, even after this law was not extended. But let's move on. What do you think? Which side of this weird government is making the most ideological concessions so far? The left or the right? On one hand, you weren't able to push through, for example, the marijuana legalization bill, because your partner Ram, the Muslim Brotherhood, objected. But you and the left-wing flank also have quite a few achievements. Are you frustrated or pleased?
Look, I can I be both?
You can pick. Yes, both.
Okay. So on the one hand, we really have had achievements, like the fact that the Minister of Health has been able to pass the fact that even that refugees will be able to have health care, something unheard of. And on the other hand, I think that although this government openly has said that there's not going to be no annexation and no end of occupation, I think that there are some things that are happening now in Area C, in the occupied territories, that are very difficult for us to swallow, and we have to change that, because even though that this government is not making annexation, some of the facts in the ground will enable the possibility to make a real agreement with the Palestinians to make a feasible Palestinian state. So we have to be very careful with that all those small things on the ground, like trying to kick out Palestinians from sea areas and the new illegal settlement, stay on the ground, because that is going to be very difficult for a future end of
the conflict. But you know that this issue will have to be postponed, because this government cannot deal with it. And talking about settlements, I did not plan to ask it, but you reminded me. The Ben & Jerry's affair, when this ice cream company that, by the way, owned by the two Jewish people from the United States, said and declared that they will not sell their ice cream in the territories, the settlements, where something like 600,000 Israelis live. There was a huge reaction in the right-wing parties of the coalition, and I asked myself where Meretz stands here, because there were also many left-wing organizations like J Street and the Peace Now and the New Israel Fund that demonstrated to the other side that this is the Ben & Jerry's right. They're not boycotting Israel, they boycott the occupation. What do you say?
Well, actually, all of Meretz are with Ben & Jerry's, but it's not the question of the ice cream. The question is, for so many years, governments in Israel have tried to erase the green line, and so now people have to understand that the occupied territories are not Israel. Look, the only people that think that the occupied territories and Israel are the same are the BDS and the right wing, and it's time to start talking about the differences between the Green Line and Israel. And I actually sent a letter to Merav Michaeli, the Minister of Transport, asking her to put signs in the roads where the Green Line begins and the State of Israel ends. Not only because I think that it's the right thing to do, but because the legal foundation that applies to Israel and the occupied territories is different. So if you want to to make people know that if you pass, if you're driving and a Palestinian is in your car, if he goes in Israel and he doesn't have a permit, you are making a criminal offense. And so the state of Israel has to tell you that this is the border, because if you drive him in the West Bank, you're not making a criminal offense. So the legality that applies in Israel in the West Bank is different. So people have to know about it. And one of the things that I want to do in this government is to actually bring back the Green Line and remind people that are living in the West Bank that the laws that apply to them are military laws, not the laws of Israel. And people don't even know that. And we have to start talking about it again.
But this is a great example to an idea or a demand by you from Meretz that can sabotage this coalition. And you don't see Bennett and Saar and Shaked and Lieberman putting signs whenever you pass the Green Line, because the last ones that still think that the Green Line is relevant is you. You know, we are all driving in the roads that crisscross all the territories all the time, and such an idea can cause this government to fall apart.
Of course, I don't want to do anything that makes the government fall apart. But I think that we have a responsibility to our citizens not to commit criminal offenses. People go to jail if you bring inside Israel a Palestinian without a permit. So people have to know where you can drive him and where you can't. So, or for example, there are a lot of different laws that apply in Israel that do not apply in the West Bank. And I think that this is a service that the government is making for our citizens. So we have to see how we can do this. But even just talking about it inside the government, it's an important thing, and something that has not happened for many years, because even when the Labour Party was inside the government, they didn't talk about it. But now Meretz hasn't been in the government for 21 years.
Yeah.
So I think this is one of the things that is our responsibility, at least to talk about it from the government.
How would you deal with, God forbid, another round of fighting with Gaza or this little for warns, and is always the first to call for ceasefires whenever there is fighting? I can see Bennett, Saar, Lieberman, and others going along with you. How will you deal with such a situation?
Look, one thing that we have to understand about Meretz is that we're not a pacifist party, but we are a party that believes that we have to defend our borders, but we have to do it in a way that is that only when is blatantly necessary. So I hope that we have ministers in the cabinet, in the defense cabinet, and I think that that our voices will be heard as well, and maybe even before and not after we open fire.
And another question from this neighborhood: Finance Minister Lieberman and Agricultural Minister Forer, who are both free market liberals, are trying to push through a wide-ranging reform that would eliminate customs and on imported farm produce. Israeli farmers claim this would kill what little is still left of Israel's agriculture. I know this is an issue dear to the heart of Meretz. What will you do in the reform if this reform goes through?
Well, actually, I agree with the fact that this reform is very bad for agriculture, and is also very bad for the ecology, and it's bad even for our health and for our defense. I think that Israel needs health independence and nutritious independence and agricultural independence. In the fact that if we begin to bring cucumbers from Turkey, tomorrow something can happen and Turkey will stop sending cucumbers to Israel. So I think that this reform is very bad for agriculture, and in the end, ultimately, I don't think that it will lower prices. We know what happened with the butter. that now butter that is coming from outside is much more expensive than the butter in Israel? Or have you ever gone to the supermarket and tried to buy pineapple that comes from outside of Israel? You can't buy it because you have to sell your house almost. So I think that this reform also lacks in the fact that they don't talk about all the money that goes through the selling process from the agriculture until the people that buy it. They don't say anything about the fact that the supermarkets have to lower not only their prices, but how much they get in all the different hands that go through the process.
This is the main problem, because many people cut their share between the farm and the supermarket. So, and this is a problem. So finally, I want to ask you, Knesset member Gaby Lasky from Meretz, what is your guess? The common wisdom is that if the state budget will pass in the Knesset within a few months, this government will survive at least 2 years. Do you think you're going to make it, and maybe even survive with all the difficulties and differences the whole 4 years?
I go with a common wisdom. I think that if we pass the budget, then we're going to have a much more stable government, and we're going to be able to see even Yair Lapid become a prime minister. I hope that will be the fact. Meretz is doing everything in its possibilities in order not to be the one that makes it impossible to continue with this government and that spoils it. And we're paying a very high price. But if we're able to bring a lot of good things to our electorate and to the people of Israel, I think that this is the best opportunity that Israel has in order to change the route that it has been brought to in the past 12 years.
Okay, it was very interesting. Knesset member Gaby Lasky from Meretz, a member of the weirdest Israeli coalition ever. Thank you for this conversation, and we will be right back after a short break. Thank you, Gaby. Toda.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
I'm Andrew Parasolidi, president of the award-winning media news site El Monitor, where we cover the Middle East with some of the best reporters and columnists anywhere. And I'm excited to announce our new podcast on the Middle East, where each week I will interview newsmakers from the U.S. and the region about the latest news and trends with additional commentary from our on-the-ground correspondents. Those of you who follow the region know that what happens in the Middle East doesn't stay in the Middle East. And to cite another great movie line, every time the U.S. tries to get out, the region pulls us back. Your time is valuable, so let me promise you this. You will learn something and you will never be bored, because each week we'll be talking with and listening to those leaders who are making the news and shaping the trends in this critical and fascinating region. So please subscribe to On the Middle East with me, Andrew Parasolidi.
Thank you for staying with us. It was an interesting chat with Knesset member Gaby Lasky from Meretz about this very strange and unexpected Israeli coalition. And she told us that no one suspected or imagined or thought a few months ago that it's even a possibility that all these partners will sit together. Naftali Bennett, the Prime Minister, she told us, was the CEO of the Yesha Council of the Settlements when she was the CEO of Peace Now. It is right and left, total negative, and now they're sitting in the same government. But she thinks that in this government there are some very important things that the Israeli society needs right now. At least, says Gaby Lasky, the incitement that we experienced for the last 12 years from Netanyahu and his allies against anybody who is not sharing their opinions has stopped. And the Prime Minister right now is the Prime Minister of all the Israelis, not only the Israelis that support him. And the left is no longer a dirty word in Israel, and we didn't see such things for 12 years, and this is the major achievement of this government and coalition. When I asked her what is the most surprising thing that she thinks about this coalition, she said that it is very boring. Although there is huge differences in ideology, at least, Gaby Lasky said, there is mutual respect. They sit together from all sides and the spectrum of the Israeli politics, and they respect each other. Yes, she is aware that the Prime Minister is only have 6 mandates in his party, a minority. But when Netanyahu was a Prime Minister, he was the whole government. No one did anything without his permission, and now we have a government that every minister is coming to work and has his own agenda, and maybe this government will be able to pass the state budget, and then Gaby Lasky says there is a very good chance that this government will survive, and she is optimistic about passing the budget. It's something that Israel did not experience for the last 2.5 years. That's it. I hope you found it interesting, and we will see you here next week in On Israel in Al Monitor. I'm Meretz from Tel Aviv. Thank you.